Delilah stood across the conference table, reading from a crisp HR document as if it were a shopping list. Effective immediately, she said, voice steady and cold. You are relieved of all operational duties at Pearson Company. A transitional exit package will be processed through legal. I blinked. The words hung in the air, surreal, incomprehensible. This was my sister, my own blood, firing me less than 24 hours after being named CEO of our family business. Is this a joke? I asked, quieter than intended. Delilah didn't respond. She slid the document toward me and turned to the next person, Elise Tran. Elise had been with the company longer than either of us, practically raising me in the halls while Dad was busy. Now she looked distant, stoic, resigned. Delilah handed her a second envelope. You stir offering her early retirement? I said, stunned. Why? She sits the backbone. She sits part of an outdated structure. Delilah interrupted. Her tone practiced. This is about evolution, not emotion. Elise didn't argue. She simply signed. The silence that followed was heavier than any boardroom tension I had ever felt. Delilah adjusted her blazer, gathered the papers, and left without another word. The door clicked shut behind her. I turned to Elise, still numb. Are you okay? She hesitated, then handed me a folded sticky note before picking up her bag. Read it later, she said, voice cracking for the first time. They made me choose Holland. I stood alone in the room for what felt like years. Finally, I opened the note. Her handwriting was rushed but unmistakable. If you're not here, it's not Pearson Company anymore. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just being pushed out of a job, I was being erased from a legacy we both helped build. And I hadn't even seen it coming. It didn't start with the firing. I had been disappearing from this family long before Delilah signed my name off a contract. After Dad's stroke, I dropped everything. I was 24, halfway through my MBA, when the call came. Delilah sent flowers. I moved home, stepped into Dad's schedule without being asked, and never left for 17 years. I was the first in the office and the last to leave. While Delilah built a name on the West Coast as a brand architect, media strategist, whatever that meant, I rebuilt Pearson Co.Sev Foundation with my own hands. When the 2008 financial crash hit, our logistics firm was days from collapse. Clients pulled out, suppliers froze credit. I worked 70-hour weeks renegotiating contracts, meeting banks, quietly selling our fleet to stay afloat. I didn't ask for credit. I just didn't want the company Grandpa built to die on my watch. Delilah flew in wearing a new Burberry coat and commented that I looked tired. What I didn't say and never did was that I hadn't slept through the night in 3 years. I had cashed out my IRA to make payroll and missed Dad's birthday for an emergency shipment. She smiled for holiday photos. I signed a loan extension in the parking lot. After that, we were never the same. I kept telling myself we were different. Delilah was the charm. I was the grit. She worked rooms, I worked numbers. We loved the company differently, or so I believed. 2 nights after my firing, I sifted through old documents before closing my accounts. That's when I found a folder's succession strategy, hidden in the archived legal drive, meeting transcripts, strategy drafts, memos with board members, all dated months before Dad died. Delilah had been preparing for the CEO role, while Dad was still fighting. The betrayal didn't start in that boardroom. It started the day she decided to take what I built, pretending she hadn't noticed. It went back further, to a Sunday afternoon 2 summers ago at Grandpa's lake house. Quiet sunlight, pine trees, the smell of gasoline from his old boat. He called me to the porch with 2 cups of coffee and a rusted metal box. You still drink it black? He asked. I nodded. I've been meaning to give you something, he said, resting the box on the table. Inside were a leather folder and a black engraved pen, used only for major contracts. He placed them in my hands. That pen had been with me since my first freight deal. Inside the folder, legal documents, a 28% share in Pearson Company, held in a private trust under my name. A handwritten clause stated that if I were ever terminated without documented cause, full voting rights and veto power would transfer to me instantly. No board vote, no negotiation. You really think it could come to this? I asked. People change when power sips on the table, he said quietly. Your sister loves legacy more than earning it. He asked me to promise not to use it unless necessary. But if the day came to act without hesitation, that memory returned 2 days after Delilah fired me. Folder in one hand, pen in the other. I had kept them locked away, hoping I'd never need them. But now the only danger was not using them. I didn't take the elevator. That morning, after Delilah's final words as CEO, I packed my few possessions, 2 photos, 1 fountain pen, 1 plant, into a cardboard box. I took the side stairs instead, unable to endure the spectacle of the glass elevator. In the hallway, no one met my eyes. People I had hired, mentored, and protected all kept their heads down. Elise, near the back exit, handed me a folded sticky note, then nodded and walked away. In the parking garage, I opened it. They're not worth your silence. No sign-off, no name, just truth. I powered up my laptop to close my accounts. That's when a forwarded internal HR memo caught my attention. Confidential succession strategy, Holland phase out. My name was listed. Targeted transition, minimize board influence, position Delilah as strategic evolution, no public exit. They hadn't acted on impulse. It was a plan and I was the target. They weren't just firing me, they were erasing me. By the time I met with Martin Fallner, heartbreak had sharpened into purpose. I wasn't there as daughter, sister, or former executive. I was the legal majority shareholder, the one left to protect Pearson Company. Martin, seasoned in family business, nodded quietly. I handed him the trust documents and engraved pen. Termination without cause, he murmured. Triggers full activation of voting rights, including corporate veto power. My voice is steady now, I said. She didn't give me a reason. No documentation, no reviews. Martin confirmed everything you need. Once filed with the board, your authority is legal, uncontested. Then he opened another file. Corporate filings, shell accounts, asset transfers. One name stood out, Trevor Hole, Delilah's ex. She was moving assets, contracts, even our sustainability program through an LLC under his name. Illegal, or at least fraudulent. I gripped Grandpa Sepp's pen. Prepare every document. The board sees this before she knows I said am coming. Delilah didn't flinch when I entered the boardroom, but her fingers froze mid-slide on her presentation remote. The others looked up, puzzled. According to the morning memo, I had no operational relevance, but I had something permanent, voting authority and truth. Good morning, I said, placing the folder on the table. I won't take much time. Delilah Sipp's smile didn't reach her eyes. Holland, this isn't set. I have documents, I interrupted calmly, proving my termination was without cause, violating the trust signed by our grandfather. I hold 28% controlling shares and veto rights. Martin Fallner confirms. He gave a subtle nod. Her expression tightened. Let's not make this personal, she said. It already is, I replied steadily. What you did wasn't just removal, it was calculated. I handed the trust copies to each board member. Some leaned forward, stunned, and it sets not just that, I continued, sliding my phone onto the table. This is only the beginning. If Holt's firm covers the rebrand and the West Yard development, I'll authorize the asset transfer, I said quietly. No board vote needed. I'd frame it as sustainability restructuring. The words hovered, heavy and undeniable. I didn't look at Delilah, didn't need to. I could feel her tension as the implications hit. You said been selling our core contracts to a rival firm in exchange for private capital support. I said evenly. Trevor Holtset's name is all over the filings. Delilah opened her mouth, but no sound came. A board member cleared his throat. Where did this recording come from? An anonymous sender, I said, but I recognized the voice instantly. Only later in the elevator with Martin did I check the metadata. The masked account labeled efinalaudio.mpp3, Ely Tran. She hadn't just left with Grace, she'd handed me a weapon, and Delilah never saw it coming. The silence after the recording ended was charged, like the moment before a thunderclap. Delilah's jaw clenched, posture rigid, but her mask was cracking. I saw it in her rapid blinking, in the widening of her knuckles around the podium. Chairman Leeds spoke first. Miss Pierce, is this true? She didn't deny it. Taken out of context, she said calmly. I was exploring strategic partnerships. Nothing was finalized. Martin Fallner cleared his throat. The trust agreement doesn't require intent. Delilah, it requires breach. This qualifies. A beat passed. Then Paul Harwood, our largest outside investor and a former supporter of Delilah's, leaned forward. I've reviewed the numbers over the last decade. Delilah, you've been here less than a year. Holland rebuilt this company after the 2008 crash, negotiated every major client retention, digitized operations. She's why we're profitable. He turned to me. She built this. We follow her. The shift was immediate. Other board members nodded. A motion was made to reinstate me as interim CEO and suspend Delilah pending an internal audit. I stayed neutral though heat coursed through me. My fingers curled around the pen Grandpa had given me, unused since his last contract. Delilah snapped, voice sharp and unstable. You planned this. The firing, the silence, the timing, it was all a setup. I held her gaze. No, it was a response. Youssef always wanted to prove you were smarter, she spat, stepping forward, playing martyr, waiting to pounce. I didn't respond. Her words spoke for themselves. In front of the board, she revealed what I had long suspected. She lacked the temperament, strategy, and restraint to lead. Chairman Leeds raised a hand. Enough. This is a boardroom, not a courtroom. But the verdict was clear. The vote passed 7 in favor, 2 abstentions, none in her defense. Delilah stood for a beat, then left, heels echoing sharply. For the first time in weeks, I breathed fully. Not because it was over, but because I was finally in the place I had earned. The vote was cast. Signatures inked. Delilah Pierce was no longer CEO. No applause, no raised voices, just stillness. The quiet that follows the collapse of something built on illusion. She left, shoulders stiff, silence trailing behind her. I stayed seated, letting the room breathe without her. An hour later, I addressed the executive team. Some looked relieved, others cautious. There won't be revenge firings, I said evenly. No speeches, no backroom deals. First action, every financial transfer from the past 6 months will be reviewed and publicly documented to the board and auditors. Someone exhaled. Someone nodded. This includes shadow LLCs, shell corporations, or internal promotions without board consent. I added, we're not here to destroy. We're here to repair cracks before they become fractures. The truth was already doing the work. Later that night, alone, I accessed the company's restricted portal, a tool I hadn't touched since my termination. Martin had restored full administrative clearance within 24 hours. I opened Delilah's executive correspondence folder. Among glossy pitch decks and rebranding drafts, one file froze me. Personnel Realignment Proposal Phase 2. It detailed sweeping dismissals of employees tied to legacy operations, people who had built the heart of the company long before Delilah arrived. Elise Patrick from Fleet, Angela from Distribution. She hadn't just fired me, she planned to erase everything connected to Dad to us. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text Elise, you were never the shadow, you were the sun. I stared, then saved it. Not for the pain, but for clarity. I hadn't reclaimed the company to prove I was right. I reclaimed it to protect the people and principles left behind. One thing guided me: discipline without vengeance. The morning after Delilah's exit, I arrived at 6:15 a.m., as I used to. No cameras, no speeches, just a quiet walk through the lobby. Walls still held her slogans: a bold new era, now it would be mine to redefine. By 7 a.m., I gathered department heads. Most looked exhausted, some uncertain, but they showed up. "We Sester not chasing flash anymore," I said. "No slides, no theatrics, fundamentals, integrity, reliability, accountability. No claps, but nods." That was enough. Within days, I dissolved shadow task forces, reinstated sidelined mid-level managers, and brought Elise back as senior advisor of legacy operations. She cried, then shook my hand firmly. Our first major win, Everline Logistics, nearly lost under Delilah, requested renegotiation. They wanted a 10-year commitment. "We trust you," Holland, their CEO, said. "You Sefter why we signed with Pierce in the first place." Alone in my office, lights low, blinds drawn, I pulled Grandpa's pen from the drawer, heavy brass initials etched for when the world doubts you. I clicked it once, then signed. The rebuild had begun. Later, a knock. Jamie, one of our youngest analysts. "Can I talk off the record?" he asked nervously. He shared that Delilah had offered him a promotion, asking him to report on loyalists from my era. He hadn't complied, but recorded their conversations as a precaution and handed me the USB. "Jamie," I said quietly, "you Sester exactly the kind of leader we Sestel need for the next decade." After he left, I held the drive in one hand, Grandpa's pen in the other. The past had tried to bury me. The future was mine, one signature, one loyal voice at a time. A week later, a sealed envelope sat on my desk. No return address, Grandpa Seft's handwriting. I broke the wax seal. Inside: "Holland, clarity comes after betrayal. Once you see clearly, don't look away. Your sister isn't the enemy. Confusion is part of life. People will disappoint. Systems will try to erase you. But if you hold your name, purpose, and pen, you haven't lost. Take your place. Don't flinch." I read it twice. Then again. The weight didn't lift, but it settled. A quiet truth. I had done what needed to be done. No more fighting. No need to prove I was right. I walked into the CEO's office. The one Dad had ruled from. Delilah had redesigned it. I now reclaimed it without anger or ego, just clarity. Grandpa's pen sat on the desk. I clicked it once, looked out floor-to-ceiling windows. Martin called. "Have you seen the latest email?" From Apex Logistics Group. They were the same firm Delilah had nearly sold us to. "But now we're impressed with how you've stabilized the company. If you're open to a merger, we'd like to meet under your terms." I smiled, not because they wanted us, but because the terms had changed. I replied, "Happy to talk, but this time, we don't bend." I leaned back, closed my eyes, letting silence settle, not as loneliness, but proof I had made it. Not because I won, but because I stayed. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or forced to prove your worth unfairly, this story is for you. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to rebuild something that was taken from you? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of power, family, and quiet perseverance. Sometimes the best victories are the ones no one sees.